Hi, this is Scott, and Ann asked me to read a wonderful story that she's written about, you'll decide what it's about, but it's called Possibilities in Uncertainties. Once upon a time, in each of the four corners of a forest lived four friends. And every day, when their chores were done and their lessons were learned, they were allowed to slip away from their families and meet in the great meadow in the middle of the forest. There they would run and laugh and build, bring picnics, tell stories, play make-believe, and share their deepest and most private secrets. They had been the best of friends since they had been very little. Their parents used to go with them on these outings, but since they had reached the very grown-up age of 7, they were allowed to come to the meadow alone, as long as they came when their parents rang the bells for supper time. And who would want to miss supper time anyway? So they always came home on time, and that meant they could go play the next day. They had other names, real names, names their parents called them when they were really in trouble, but everyone called them Scratch, Sketch, Scritch, and Scooch. Early one spring it started to rain. It rained so hard that it melted all the snow. It rained so hard that the creeks couldn't keep up and just spread out all over. When it finally stopped raining, the four stood with their parents on their back porches in the far corners of the forest. Their parents pointed out that until the forest dried, there was no way they could go to play in the meadow. And besides, there were chores to do and lessons to be learned, and if they worked and studied ahead, they would have more time to play when things dried out. Scratch, Sketch, Scritch, and Scooch called each other every day and agreed, not today, but maybe tomorrow. And so it went for almost an entire week. Finally, their parents agreed today was the day. 4 sets of feet ran pell-mell down their forest tracks to the great meadow, and then they stopped. "There's a pond in the meadow," they yelled across the water. After a couple of false starts, they agreed to meet at Scritch's side of the pond. "This thing ruins all our fun," Scratch said. "How can we run and play with that in the middle?" Sketch asked. "Why doesn't it go away?" Scritch wondered. "I don't like it. It's wrong that it's here," Scooch declared, and they all crossed their arms and scuffed their feet and scowled mighty scowls. All of a sudden they heard a big splash in the pond and turned their heads to see a widening circle of ripples, out of which a big old frog popped its head. The frog climbed out of the water and hopped to the top of Scratch, Sketch, Scritch, and Scooch's very favorite rock, which was now in the middle of the pond. "Who are you? What are you doing in our pond?" yelled the 4 friends. "I am Fred the Frog. Other people know me as the Possibility of Possibilities." "Are you one of those frogs that people kiss and they turn into a prince?" Scritch asked. "Ew," said Fred. "I am already a princess." "What's all that stuff about possibilities?" Scooch asked. "Well," said Fred, "what do you see when you look at this pond?" "Something that gets in the way of all our fun," said Scratch. Something that changes everything that had always been one way, perfect as it was, said Sketch. Something that doesn't belong here, says Scritch. And something that's not good, says Scooch. Really? Asks Fred. You don't see any possibilities for the four of you in this beautiful pond? It may not be here forever, but while it's here, why don't you think about what might be possible with a pond in your backyard? Like what? The friends asked together. Well, said Fred, Scratch, you like building things. After all, that's how you got your name. Couldn't you build boats for the four of you to sail on the pond? I guess I could, Fred. After all, the storm left all sorts of bark and branches around. I could make boats, and we could have races. And Sketch, have you noticed how many new birds are at the pond that are not usually in your meadow? When the pond goes away, they'll move on too, because they're water birds. But you could draw them now. Wow, that's true, Fred. Thanks. After all, that's how I got my name. Oh, Fred, cried Scritch, I could throw sticks for my dog, and she could fetch them from the water. She loves water, but she'll never give the stick back unless I scritch her exactly right behind the ears. I've always known exactly where a fur baby wants to be scritched since I was little. Fred continued, and Scooch, if you have this wonderful pond for just a little while, what are you going to do with it? I don't understand the gift your name brings. At that point, Scratch, Sketch, Scritch, and Scooch all started laughing, and Scooch blushed a little. My parents called me that because I can sit so still that they forget I'm in the room. I'll tell you what I'm going to do with this pond. I'm going to fish because I just saw a fish jump. I'll sit so still they'll never know to be afraid, and we can all have a fish dinner. But listen, Fred warned them, this pond is like magic. That storm just dropped it into your meadow, but it probably won't be here forever. You should explore new things while you have them. Just because things aren't certain and forever, it doesn't mean there aren't things to learn and enjoy. Even in uncertainty, many things are possible. Thanks, Fred, said the friends. What thing is possible for you in this pond? Well, Fred thought a minute. New friendships with you, and a great rock to lay about on in the sun, and a chance to sing in the dark of night. You sing, Fred? Asked Scratch, Sketch, Scritch, and Scooch. That's what frogs do best, said Fred. As long as this pond is here, I'll sing my heart out. You and your families can come out at night and listen. You'll know I'm saying hello and singing about possibilities. And that's the end of our story, Possibilities in Uncertainty.